Alright. Hello, and welcome to Palinurus, I think? That's how you say it, I think? I don't know. Palinurus. Palinurus. I'm not sure how you actually say it. When I Google searched, I saw a bunch of spiny lobsters or something. Which, that's probably wrong. Anyway. Apparently it's a short visual novel on Steam. And it's free. About something about being stuck in space? I'm not sure. But, well, let's just start. Palinurus. I don't know how to say it correctly. I'll say Palinurus. Palinurus? The story of the ocean of stars. Joy, beautiful sparkle of the gods. Daughter of Elysium. Mirabel Station spiraled, ceaselessly, in an otherwise unremarkable corner of deep space. I was waiting for my flight number to be called. I tapped a finger against my knee, eager to be on my way. I had rehearsed this ritual countless times before. Mirabel Station was hardly remarkable as far as space stations went. Though then again, who was to say there were many truly remarkable space stations in the first place? Surely there were hundreds of millions of travelers passing in droves around Andromeda Central Station. Andromeda was a work of art, and performers, painters, composers would all gather in the artificially terraformed Central Plaza to find an audience. Reminds me of a airport, but in space. It was a mosaic of colors, sights, sounds, a brazen horde of intergalactic human culture, like a Venice atop a sea of stars. And I was stuck here, at this gray, factory-produced pit stop, waiting by my lonesome for my flight's preparations to finish up. For as long as I could remember, space travel out in the boonies was like this. Lonely, tedious, cramped, time-consuming. Stripped down to the status of a commute that never seemed to end. Space travel as an enterprise was far too expensive and far too dangerous for allowing anything short of a mega corporation to handle the logistics. I glanced down to my ticket. Sure enough, there it was. Titan Transportation Solutions. In loud, bold, bleak font. They were one of the big players in the field, and they were the ones that footed the bill for, I don't know, thousands of space stations just like this one. And let's be perfectly clear here, space is big, enormous. Try to wrap your head around how infinitely spread out, how empty it all really is. You can't. To get anywhere of consequence in space, one must leapfrog through dozens upon dozens of space stations like these, scattered throughout the galaxy. I'd have been doing precisely that for the better part of an old Earth month. So rest assured, I was well rehearsed. I knew my lines. I could nail down the song and dance in my sleep. I was, at any rate, getting restless. There isn't a lot to see in space, just tons of tiny, identical white dots, and plenty of tiny gray checkpoints to pass through. But that was the price you had to pay to get anywhere. And sometimes, if you were lucky, you get the occasional nebula, or debris cloud, or band of pirates. Space pirates. I focused my attention on the silver spaceship which laid before me. I'd seen many like it before. It was small, intended for a single occupant. From the outside, it looked relatively unremarkable. You've used that word like 4 times already, Mr. Player Character. It was sleek like an arrow. The cockpit stood out. The windshield wrapped itself around the front of the vessel, stopping just as the ship's nose began to flow downwards into its underbelly. Its exterior was sleek, its curving wings wide like that of an albatross. Albatross. Attention, attention, Mirabel Station. The intercom crackled. We are now boarding one-man shuttle flight 93094B. Shuttle flight 93094B. Passenger of said flight, please secure your belongings and board immediately. Is that us? Finally. That was just the notice I've been waiting for. My flight is prepped and ready. I hurried down the main concourse of the hangar bay, checked to make sure the shuttle was marked with my flight number, and slipped inside. The cabin interior betrayed its sleek exterior. Lights along the walls and ceiling illuminated the passage, their luminance rippling towards the cockpit. The floor was lined with dark navy blue carpet that traveled up the walls for a few inches. I made my way towards the cockpit, taking a look around. A cursory glance revealed 2 seats, confirming the hunch that this was a repurposed vessel. I remember that back in the day, every spaceship required human pilots and co-pilots. I guess this was a relic from the old regime. No, everything's automatic now. There wasn't much room to move around in the cockpit. A horde of buttons, dials, flashing lights, and other mechanisms were scattered around the control console. The cockpit was dominated by the enormous windshield that opened up to a commanding view of, at the moment, precisely nothing. Nothing but space and an ocean of stars. It was hard to get excited from such a sight anymore. Within moments, the cockpit was bathed in warm blue light, and a computerized voice began to speak. New passenger detected, initiating registration sequence. I held up the ticket between 2 fingers, just to make sure the system registered it. The blue light shifted around the small area and then dissipated suddenly. Passenger identification ticket code number 9992403. Transit authorized. Spooling intelligent navigation kernel. Analyzing animal complex unlocking communication synthesis. Codec. Quantum processors are online. Database registries are online. Analytical engines are online. Actual key is online. A lot of mumble jumble. Gotta update. Your firmware is currently updated. Notation codec 1-2. Awakening authorized. Persona, Intelligent Navigator Persona unlocked. Navigator Z1109CBP. Copyright, Intergalactic Transportation. It's the year 2020. Though, I guess copyright doesn't necessarily mean that this is the current year. This game is taking place, I guess. Unit name Intelligent Navigator Budapest. And suddenly, the voice became softer, more polite, more feminine. Yeah, I assume, is this artificial intelligence? Let me save. Yeah, let me save. Gonna make a lot of saves just in case. Or rather, actually, now that I think about it, maybe not, maybe not. I think this is like a kinetic novel, so actually there's no choices. Forgot to mention that. But, well, I gotta save just in case it crashes. I don't know. That happened to me before, you know, my computer just crashes sometimes for whatever reason. I don't know. But anyway. Budapest. Initializing. 1 moment, please. Slowly, it became more and more human. I heard something click above my head and glanced up to notice a small metal compartment, extruding a multitude of lenses like the most indecisive camera in the cosmos. So that's where it was. Or rather, that's where it was? So that's where it was. Anyway, inside it, some mechanism whirled to life, and lenses began to twist, oscillate, and extend. Anyway. They focus on a single point, the pilot's seat to the left. It is a woman. Slowly, a human figure coalesced. Its form was translucent, accompanied by a dress white as ivory. For a second, it seemed that it had caught fire, as brilliant red hair flowed from its head down to its back and shoulders. Delicate, feminine features emerged as one. Ears and nose, the eyes, and the mouth curled in a polite, neutral grin. Two long and slender arms trailed to small and slender hands, clasping each other in front of the flowing dress. The projection's eyes open, revealing irises of striking sapphire. They look like planets, glowing against the backdrop of deep space. It took all the appearance of a woman, but I recognized the emulation at work. It's a virtual woman. This would be the personal navigator assigned to this shuttle, an artificial intelligence designed to serve humanity. Greetings, passenger sir. Are you doing well today? Yes. I'm doing fine, thank you. I took a second to ease into my seat, checking over all the belts and harnesses which draped my hard suit. Time to head out again, I suppose. Space travel certainly does get exhausting after a while. I guess we, the character, have been traveling a lot. But, oh well. At least the navigator seems nice this time. Oh, I guess these are standard? You always get an artificial intelligence companion, maybe, every time you travel in space? AIs had become a fixture in space travel by this point. Before, you needed two pilots at least to operate a vessel like this. But programs didn't need food or water, and they certainly didn't ask for remuneration. It was a convenient cost-cutting measure from the megacorps, and the switch was welcomed by consumers with open arms. I don't know why I can't say that word. Remuneration, like compensation, basically. Anyway, I'm glad you are feeling well. I am the Intelligent Navigator Budapest, and I will be accompanying you on this voyage. Now, let's take a look at your registration. The navigator turned its back to me, bringing up an electronic windows of records and data like it was conjuring magic barriers. People loved AI for stuff like this. Now, they don't have to do that, I guess. It's just for a show. They brought up all the efficiency of a personal planner, calculator, and computer and stuffed it all into a pretty-looking package with flair and style. By all stretches of the imagination, they were wonderful workers. They worked tirelessly, they were quick thinkers, and you could customize anything about them to meet your own needs. It seems this navigator was left with its default settings though. Just as well, I didn't plan to see much from it from the cabin. The pilot seat had been retooled to fit its hologram generator, so I wasn't much use here anyway. Departing from Mirabel Station at 0400 Imperial Standard Time. Destination Galactic Grand Central Station in the Alpha Centauri system. This is gonna be quite a lengthy journey, isn't it? Not to worry, passenger sir, you have my word. I'll get you to Grand Central safe and sound. Some people ended up getting too attached to their AIs. Personally, I tended to keep my distance. At the end of the day, they were basically programs, lines of code assembled to execute tasks behind the artificial visage of a living person. Whatever niceties they uttered came from the mouth of some programmer, or some psychologist in a clinic, or at least from a dialogue construction engine designed by such. Dialogue construction engine? You mean one for visual novels, maybe? Anyway, content to confirm my presence and leave piloting to the navigator, I nodded in affirmation. We'll be launching from the station now. Please remain seated and harnessed until instructed otherwise. Roger that, loud and clear. I took a few paces to my seat in the cabin, not too far from the personal navigator stationed in the cockpit. I lowered myself into the chair. It was surprisingly plushy. As usual, I threaded my arms around the safety harnesses and then clicked the connectors together. Leaning back, I turned my head to look through the window to my right. I heard the electronic sputtering and whirring of the shuttle disengaging from the hangar restraints. My stomach twisted in with anticipation, and suddenly the shuttle lurched forwards. After a few moments of throttle, we reached open space and cruised our way out of the station. And it appears we are off. Currently at cruising speed of 40,000 kilometers per hour, piloting navigational route now. Calculating estimated arrival time. So, passenger sir, do you travel often? Yes, very. But never with a navigator as amiable as yours truly, I assume? I laugh. That's pretty clever for a navigator. You come up with that or your programmers? That line's one of my own, thank you very much. One of your own? Which you thought up using the processors your company built for you? Teasing your navigator is against regulations, you know. I ought to have you reported. Oh dear, I do apologize. I thought you said you weren't a novice to travel. I'm not. You seem like a greenhorn to me. Which of the other navigators have you even met? Collecting survey data for the company, I see. Don't underestimate me, navigator. I wasn't joking around about how much I've traveled. Let's see, there was Vienna, Warsaw, Chicago, Osaka, Chiang Mai. I mean, those are real places on Earth, but I guess in this science fiction, a lot of sci-fi is in a setting where actual Earth is like not really like easily accessed, maybe, and that's where our character's going. So all those names are just places in the other parts of the galaxy, maybe? That's what I assume. Anyway. I get it. You've had your way with a bountiful cast of artificial intelligences. AI. You make it sound so indecent when you put it like that. Oh, is that so, passenger sir? I gave a small and polite chuckle out of respect, though it's not as if I was particularly obligated to show such social courtesy to a machine. It was just a peculiar personal habit of mine, which I had obtained from spending so much time in transit. If you don't mind me asking... Or rather, oops, I mixed up. Anyway, if you don't mind me asking, and then I go, what will you be doing once we arrive in Alpha Centauri? It better be something worthwhile after such a long trip. Is this how you screen for potential troublemakers? I wasn't planning anything shady now. The navigator let out a short, pre-programmed giggle. Goodness me. Just curious is all. I asked the same question of all my passengers. Just curious. The navigator is just curious? Something of a tradition I have, A tradition it has. No kidding. I shrugged. Sightseeing mostly. Maybe I tried my luck down on ACB2. Whatever that means. Oh, it's a planet. Ah, the planet. It must be unbearably hot at this point in its orbit. Oh, it's unbearably hot all the time. It's like walking to a core of a smelting planet. Or plant? I would say planet. Well, I assume it's a smelting planet. Anyway, in the core of a smelting plant. True. Any business down there? Corporate espionage, isn't it? Now, sir, I assure you, none of these questions were pre-programmed. I'm going to be piloting shuttles for time eternal, if you haven't noticed. You could afford me a little curiosity about my passengers. Eh, it's mostly morbid curiosity maybe that's pulling me there. Maybe I'll scope out some mining prospects in the area. They say they found platinum down there. I could use it for a square meal. More likely I'll end up digging up some nickel and iron, but that'll be fine with me. Shoot for the moon and you land among the stars or something like that. All that for a meal? Pardon me for saying so, passenger sir, but that sounds a little reckless. Might be. Me, I'm not bothered by it. It's hard to scrape up credits in this economy. Besides, it's bound to be a pretty view, and who knows, maybe some other lunatics had the same idea I had. Or I did. Sounds like a wonderful adventure. Huh, you're quite the character, sir. I'll be rooting for you to hit it big. Thank you kindly for your well wishes. Coming from an AI, I didn't think much of it, but it was nice to hear it aloud all the same. You're quite welcome. Now we'll be serving a complimentary drink and beverage momentarily. Oh, that's great. I had to skip breakfast. The navigator smiled. After the meal, I went ahead and took a short nap. Ate some space food. Smoked it into the cabin chair. I slept lightly. But well, I didn't dream of anything. I didn't want to either. After some time of sleep, however, I was wakened with a start. I don't really have to save, but just in case something goes wrong, not just in the game, but rather my computer. Anyway. Sir. Passenger, sir, please come to the cockpit. I bolt upright, startled. Something must have gone wrong. Something seems to have gone wrong. Well, your hunch was correct. I took that as my cue to rush over. As I stepped into the cockpit, warning lights and alerts began to blare, bathing the cockpit in a frantic kaleidoscope of colors. The navigator had set to work. Warning. Oh, how interesting. What is it? Did something happen? Not to cause you any alarm, passenger sir, but there's been an incident. The shuttle's short-range radar has detected an incoming debris storm. That doesn't sound good. Actually, in fact, that's a very bad thing, isn't it? Well, I wouldn't say very bad, but you might want to... Now, like I said, there's no cause for alarm or anything. Of course not. But you might want to brace for impact. A debris storm. I hurried back to my seat in the cabin to look out for the window, squinting my eyes to see through the blackness of space. I could make out a few sparkling lights, reflections. Yeah, they're reflections? The ship itself had bright, powerful lights attached to its wing, tail, and under the cockpit, and every time they flashed, I got a peek at some sort of approaching mass. Meteoroids. Hundreds, maybe thousands of meteoroids, drifting aimlessly through space, clustered together in a school. A relentless, soaring landslide of steel, on a direct collision course with the shuttle. Is it made of steel? I assume that's a metaphor. Anyway. My heart sank deep down my stomach. Actually, it went past that. Plummeted straight down to my bowels. You know, I do get stomach aches when I get nervous, so I know that feeling. No cause for alarm, alright? I've got it under control. No cause for alarm. No cause for alarm? I repeated those words to myself more incredulously each time. Incredulously. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I feared was to come. Still as a statue, I closed my eyes, content not to watch it go down. Oh, that's not good. Pop. I could hear the sound of particles impacting the hull, the constant whine of ringing metal. They started sparse, spread out, or something. I don't know. I can't make tapping noises, or I don't know, whatever. Only a few minutes ago, the cabin had been eerily silent, and now a constant stream of sound filled it, like we'd flown into the midst of a typhoon. I can imagine the cold wind hitting my face, the fury of old Earth. I think it was a better coping mechanism. I'd rather be lost in a thunderstorm on a terrestrial surface than weathering a debris storm in a dingy old shuttle in the most remote parts of charted space. I winced, popping an eye open. A heavier rock pounded against the hull, and the ship lurched to one side. It didn't seem like we'd sustained any serious damage yet, so I sat there, clenching my legs, wringing my hands in desperation, hoping the storm would soon pass. Wham! Like fists driven by fury and rage, the meteoroids continued to pound against the shuttle. With each impact, the rocks dug into the hull, denting it and pushing it against the cabin walls. The flooring pressed against my legs as a large divot was suddenly formed. That was too close for comfort. Another larger meteoroid ricocheted off the window I was seated next to. I flinched and writhed in my seat. Look, I've been through worse than this before, alright? Way worse than this. I'm a veteran of the trade, an unsung hero in the artificial intelligence community, you know. There's an AI community. This is nothing that I can't handle, so... Oh. That's bad? They come into sight. I saw enormous meteoroids, the heavy hitters of the storm, hurling themselves directly in our path. Even the awe-inspiring holy light of the distant stars cowered in the shadow of the meteoroids. Well, one was on a due course for the cabin. It was a monstrous gray, jagged mass that glistened devilishly, its iron deposits reflecting the flashing emergency lights of our ship. It was going to impact, and it was going to impact very soon. I swallowed hard and lowered my hands to undo my harness. My hands shook thunderously. I couldn't get at the switches and belts. I tugged at the straps, but they only seemed to tighten. Come on, god damn it! Before all the strength had been drained from my arms, the belts miraculously disengaged. Passenger, so you need to get in the cockpit. It's the most isolated part of the ship, and we can seal it if the worst comes to worst. Oh dear. You need to get here now. I exhaled deeply and darted towards the cockpit. Crash. Shrapnel and sparks flew everywhere, lighting up the world in a blaze of yellow and orange. The entire cabin swayed and shook. The horrendous sound of metal sheets rending apart filled my ears. I slammed it into the cockpit door, opened it, let myself fall through, and then kicked it shut. Scrambling over to the console, I sealed the cockpit door and engaged all the airlocks. My breathing was frantic, my vision blurred. I was in a panic when I saw the pale figure of the navigator scrolling through monitors and screens and spreadsheets. It comforted me, at least a little bit. That one was especially bad. Damage report. The hull's been breached. You're lucky you got here in time, sir. I took some time to settle in, trying to find my footing in the cockpit as the shuttle rumbled in the midst of the storm. I paused. I felt an odd sensation where my hand was resting on the windshield. I drifted my eyes down to take a look. A hairline fracture along the window pane. My finger ran along the thin, narrow line formed in the ultra-hardened glass. The splinter patterns it formed were remarkable. There's that word again. But I was paralyzed with terror. Suddenly, another lurch forwards, another large collision. Damn it. Please, sir, take the co-pilot seat and strap in. It's dangerous to remain standing at this time. Receptive to the machine's goading, I staggered to my feet, watching my footing in a lopsided cockpit. Eventually, I sank into the plushy co-pilot seat to the navigator's right. At least it's plushy. I glanced over to her. Hey, navigator, quick question. How in the hell did you not notice the mess of meteoroid bullshit heading our way? They didn't show up on the short-range radar. Their iron compound deposits absorbed signals, is what I'm thinking. The storm came in too fast to be traced. I paused, So there was nothing we could have done about it. The storm had just been drifting through space and had just decided to ravage us in its wake? The hell kind of freak accident? Are you alright, passenger sir? Are you hurt? That was a nasty beating you took. The program looked so concerned for me. Still rubbing my forehead, I waved its concerns off, groaning to myself. Yeah, I ought to be fine. Nothing I can't handle. What are we gonna do now? Well, our vessels sustained critical damage, and we've been knocked considerably off course. Both the navigational and communication systems are completely offline, and I haven't been able to find a way to repair them. But for now, we need to do something about the damage. Right now, the rest of the ship is nothing but sheared, hulking mess, adding unnecessary weight. Hulking mass. Preparations for jettisoning the cockpit are underway. We should be far removed from the storm in due time. Understood. Proceed as you should, navigator. Wait, what? Jettisoning the cockpit. This transit shuttle is an older model, sir. Previously designed for 2 human pilots. In the case of emergency, the ship maker installed a simple mechanism to eject the cockpit, which contains a laboratory and necessary supplies for emergency survival. It was essentially a primitive form of an escape pod, except roomier and less reliable. Although I believe the jettison system of this craft is still in working order, I do maintain it after all. Nani? Well, when I thought about it, it wasn't such a strange thing to phase out. Now that pilots were almost always navigators. Even then, I was glad it wasn't phased out entirely. The age of the ship may very well have been what saved me in this moment. Okay, well, that sounds doable. When are we going to be performing that jettison exactly? Hey, don't climb up on me now. It's not a sure thing, but I'll have to inspect our subsystems to see if it's still in working order. I thought you said it was still in working order right now. It is. Probably. The machine lied to me. Probably doesn't really. I'm going to need to inspect the circuitry in order to fire up the launch mechanism. The system was hardwired in before the time of navigators, so it hasn't been restructured in software like everything else was. The AI turned to me, an apprehensive look in its soft eyes. It's pretty scary down there, so watch out for me, passenger sir. It doesn't sound particularly confident right now. The program bowed stiffly with a weak smile. That sinking feeling in my gut stirred again. Hey, don't talk like that. You're a personal navigator, aren't you? The AI's eyes drifted up to mine, whined like a child peeking at a scolding parent. For whatever reason, I couldn't bring myself to want to match her gaze. I looked off to the side. Alright, do your best down there. I'm counting on you. The program stared back at me for a few painful moments, as if figuring something out in his mind. Its eyes were piercing, serious. In time, its eyebrows furrowed. A fiery look bursting into its irises. Understood. I'm going in. Make sure your harness is correctly secured, and I'll be back soon. I nodded. Click. That was the fastest I ever fastened my C-straps. The AI's holographic display switched off in a flash of white light, and its cameras retracted back into the inner workings of the console. In that moment, I was left to my own devices in the face of death. The cockpit was a closed room, a frame of steel and duraglass, the only thing separating the pilots from the harsh, hellish vacuum of space. I looked out at an infinite expanse before me. the distant flickering stars. Bam! I felt the ship rumble with the impact of another meteoroid. I shivered. Was I gonna die here? Alone? In the infinite vastness of space? I feel that line has been said many times in all of the science fiction. No one will care. No one would ever find me. Maybe I end up drifting out here forever. That scared me more than anything else. Well, I felt my seat vibrate. My hands fell instinctively to clasp the armrests, attempting to keep myself steady. The entire room was shaking. I felt like the harnesses was about to rip apart. Blah, ka-dunk. Shit. And then like a rag doll, I was flung back into my seat, slinking further and further into the stiff leather. At least it's plushy. I couldn't move my head. The pressure was too forceful. I simply stared out the front of the cockpit as I saw it shoot forwards. We'd definitely just been jettisoned. The cockpit is... Small pebbles pelted the windshield, but I didn't care. I was ecstatic, laughing to myself in giddy joy. The way was clearing up. The program had managed it. We were gonna make it. We're about to hit another enormous meteoroid. Slam! Our cockpit hurled through space, spinning erratically from the scrape of the meteoroid. I clutched to my seat for dear life, feeling the G-forces press into my seat. Our cockpit, once draping in flashing lights and infographic displays, was instead shrouded in a suffocating curtain of darkness. The only light caught in the chaotic glimpse of the stars through the windshield. I winced as the seat straps dug into my chest, the only thing keeping me from a hard collision with the windshield. I felt nauseous. The might of the I never said that word before. Centrifugal. I don't know how to say that word. Never said it out loud in my entire life. Centrifugal forces crushing the very air from my lungs. I strained to look to my side, where the navigator had previously been, fiercely pecking away at the interfaces to salvage our wreck of a transit shuttle. The logical part of me understood what it was up to, operating inside circuitry and wiring, but I still felt a wave of dread overcome me. I was wondering, how does the AI do that? Isn't it just a software? So how can it move circuits? Maybe there's like little like tiny arms inside the ship that move the wires around or something, maybe? I don't know. What if it didn't work? What if the navigator failed? What if it didn't manage to restore power and there was another breach in the hull? I have become trapped in the deepest, emptiest expanse mankind had ever known. I was trapped, good as dead, and this was my grave. A coffin of glass and sparkling circuitry. It would preserve my final moments, the dying expression on my face as I suffocated and froze in the vacuum of space. Well, in space, no one can hear you scream. Yes, I've heard that line before. It was a quote from an old, ancient story they tell to kids. Perhaps it would have been okay for me to scream here, but not a single utterance escaped from my lips. My throat tightened as I came to terms with the looming shadow of death hovering over me. Closed my eyes, ready to accept my fate. Whoosh. Boom. My eyes shot open as the cockpit rumbled back to life. The cloak of darkness was cut to ribbons by the various displays stuttering back to life. The flashing red light, planted to the control board, indicated that something was amiss. Don't worry, flashing light, I noticed. The operating system booted up before my eyes. Green code buzzing across the hovering black screen faster than my human eyes could hope to process. NPV hash equals 4895. Memory blah blah blah. Computer stuff. PRA enabled. Enabling database access. Oh, June 1st. It's a Monday. Applesoft. Time slicing quantum. 3 pages. About this computer mumbo jumbo. Did this mean the ship was coming back online? I didn't know what was going on. Suddenly, a flash of white light. I'm here. My deepest apologies for taking so long. A soft chime, too soft given the pressing circumstances, signaled the return of the intelligent navigator. I twisted my head in its direction as it scrambled for the controls. It seemed to hesitate for a moment, nervous, almost wincing. She looked tired. So, pardon my common man's language, but the hell's going on? The stabilizing subsystems have been recalibrated. The emergency thrusters remain seated. We'll be undergoing a little turbulence until... Before the AI could provide me with an estimate, the cockpit lurched forward. I nearly spat that, feeling the rocking of the cockpit in the pit of my stomach. The eyes of the navigator reflected the glow and the flickering of countless holographic screens. It swiped frantically through flowing diagrams of schematics and forms. Just one moment. It seemed to yell in its response. I opened my jaw to respond, but in this state it was pointless to yell at it. The cockpit still felt like it was swirling, and the schematics and sheets upon sheets of code only made my scrambled mind ache even more. I'm not feeling so hot. I'll be fine. Please remain seated. Hey, there's no need to shout. I'm not shouting. That piercing cry made me jump a good 2 feet. Or at least I would have, had I not been strapped in. I'm not shouting. There was something different about the program. Why was it yelling at me now? Even when we were in the midst of a debris storm, it was calm, orderly, procedural. Sure, it was firm and tense, but only in a professional manner. Looking at it now, scrambling to make key adjustments, frantic movements, it was most certainly panicking. Normal for a human looking into a face of an inevitable death, but an artificial intelligence was different. AIs had to remain calm in all circumstances. They even had sentience limitation codecs, chips inside of them that suppress sentient and emotional behavior. Maybe this was just some sort of scenario the personal navigators had never been programmed for? Bing! Another chime rang out. The obnoxious red light turned green. Did she pull it off? Oh, I didn't mean to skip that. Sir. There's no... I don't know how to... Uh-oh. Is there a history button? Well... Is a bit of it's a blunder. Actually, let me... Okay, is there like a... I skipped one line. I want to go back, actually. Because I accidentally skipped a line. Oh no. Is there like load game? Okay, click here. Let me close this one. Can I skip most of this? How do you skip? Do this? Yeah? Oh great. She's acting like a human, which is weird. She's an AI. Pull off. I felt the G-forces previously pinning my body to my seat ebb away. Till finally I found I could move comfortably. Okay, it was just that. The stars beyond stopped their fluttery spinning, and it seemed our course was finally... Stability subsystem was returned to partial effectiveness. The AI next to me beamed proudly. The worst seemed to have passed. I groaned wearily. raising my right hand to massage my shoulder. I was aching all over. As I cracked my neck, I found myself face to face with the program at the helm. There was something different in her eyes now. I couldn't quite tell what it was. It was abstract, almost emotional. The girl was staring at me. So we're good now? I wasn't quite sure what her eyes seemed to be asking. It was still a machine, wasn't it? A construct? Felt all kinds of weird, being stared at so closely like that. The AI continued gazing at me for a moment and then nodded. Yes, the stabilizing subsystem is functioning at this point, as well as the artificial gravity, but I'm still unable to replot our course. I'm not quite sure how far we spiraled away. I think we might even be in uncharted space. But regardless, as soon as the stabilizing subsystem returns to full strength, we should be able to regain situational awareness and head off on our way. The AI explained all this, concisely, as it continued to study me closely. I raised my eyebrows in response. Is something wrong? Something on my face? Huh? I was concerned if you... How do you feel after all that? It seemed like you were put through considerable stress. I paused to gaze back at her expression. The concern in her voice was almost palpable. After all that, I wasn't expecting to be the subject of a doting worry of some sort of machine. But I guess that it would be in programming of what was essentially a space stewardess, now that I thought about it. I smirked. In any case, that was one hell of an understatement on her part. Me, I felt like I just spent 10 minutes in a blender. Huh? The program tilted her head. Apparently, it was unable to comprehend similes. Never mind, I'm fine. Just a little sore is all. She stared at me for a few seconds longer, studying me more. In time, it smiled, seemingly satisfied. What was it thinking? Stretching. What? Stretching is a good way to relieve aches and pains. We aren't anticipating any more turbulence, so if you like, undo your belts and... No, I'm good. I think I'll rest a bit. Walk around a bit, or that's perfectly fine. Excuse me, I have to make some calibrations. I wasn't quite sure where that came from. This AI seemed so cheery now, eager to please. There was as well something new in her eyes, a glint of something. Well, you keep hinting that, Mr. Passenger. Or, actually, I don't know, is it Mr. or Miss? Actually, it doesn't matter, I guess. I guess it's just whoever's playing the game, so. She seemed like a different person. Different from the machine I spoke with when I boarded, I meant. I thought I might have seen a spark or something like that in her eyes. Wait. It was still a machine, for God's sake. Why they designed them like this, I'd never know. Well, to make anime real. No. Anyway. I shook my head forcefully, as if to force out the intrusive thoughts. An awkward silence fell over the cockpit, as the AI continued to fiddle with the display interfaces. I got a look at the expression on her face. They program it so the corner of her mouth would twitch. She was fidgeting with herself. It was a little painful to watch. Hey, I spoke up, but stopped mid-sentence. Shoot, what was its name? I hadn't committed it to memory at all. She turned to me with those curious blue eyes. Yes, sir. Budapest. That was it, I thought. The unchanged expression on her face meant I hit the mark. At least my brain was still in one piece. I've always had trouble with names. I would never remember unless this visual novel had names written on the dialogue. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for, saving me and all that. Oh, I only did what any other personal navigator would have done. It was my pleasure to... No, really, that was really incredible. You knew exactly what you had to do, and I wasn't much of help. Budapest stared back at me, silently, for a moment that seemed to stretch to eternity. I scratched the back of my neck, thinking of what to follow up with. I'd be dead if you hadn't handled things the way you did, so really, thank you. It was my pleasure. I'm happy. I'm just happy that you're safe. There was that look in her eyes again. She stared at me often, surely studying me, watching how I moved, how I spoke, how I breathed. But it was more than that. She looked straight into me, up front, honest, and took a look around the cockpit. Now that the situation had calmed down a bit, I recognized now would be a good time to get our bearings together. At the very least, we were unharmed. Budapest seemed in top shape, and well, I was a little shaken, but not stirred. Shaken, not stirred, come on. And nonetheless, we've been knocked off course and separated from the rest of the ship. Nothing but a control center left over, a head without a body. So, what do we do now? I'm looking to the matter right now. She frowned, visibly, while she worked. That wasn't good. According to the diagnostics I've in front of me, while the cockpit should have been equipped with an operating thruster subsystem, it seems a stray meteoroid smashing into our hull caused critical damage to that particular component. So what you're saying is, we're stuck in a lifeboat without a paddle right now? She turned to me quizzically for a few moments, before nodding slowly. That is correct, I think. If I'm understanding the figure of speech in the correct, that is correct. Thankfully, a sufficient amount of life support subsystems are in close to optimal working condition. Artificial gravity generation, oxygen pump, sustenance, replicator. Oh, so there was a replicator installed in the cockpit. Good. I'd started to worry about how I'd be feeding myself in here. Artificially manufactured, cold chemical paste called food wasn't exactly something out of a dream, but at least I wasn't going to starve. Now, gotta count your blessings. And our solar panels are in working order as well. I'm confident we won't be running out of power for any length of our journey. Well, hey, that all sounds great, aside from the thrusters, that is. Right? Budapest went silent, her eyes locked on the schematics and diagrams hovering around her. There was one thing. She looked apprehensive. I wasn't sure what else could have gone wrong. Everything seemed to be alright inside the cockpit. I glanced around just to be safe. I could barely tell we were drifting off through space. The stars, sleeping silently in the void, were the only indicators we were moving at all. I think I lost a part of me. Part of her? What does she mean by that? That is to say, well, this vessel. I'm connected to it. It's like my body, you could say. Yeah, I think I can understand that much. Losing the thrusters is bad, but at least we... No, not the thrusters. I mean... She clenched her hands into balls, an expression of dread coming across her face. My sentience limitation codec, the main chip to be specific, it was destroyed during our escape from the debris storm, and I... Are you allowed to take those limitations off on artificial intelligence seems like a bad idea. I'm trying to process what to think about it. I'd heard about the limitation chips before. There were a few documented cases I remembered. A salaryman in the new Scorpy new Scorpy system found that his AI secretary had been acting oddly. In the late hours of the night, they would get lost in long conversations with each other. Their work output fluctuated, and it was weeks until the corporate head got wind of it. They got their research wing and sifted through the AI's code. In the lines of numbers and strings of functions, they were unable to find the root cause of the sudden change, but they produced a chip to suppress this sort of behavior, this internal cognition. They were called Sentience Limitation Codecs, and they were meant to keep the AIs obedient and subservient. Usually, they always did their job, but if hers was shattered then... Oh, are you gonna go HAL 9000 on us, Budapest? So, how are you feeling? Shocked, she looked over at me, astonished I would ask something about like that. I asked how you were feeling. You seem pretty okay to me right now. Her eyes drifted to the schematics. From her eyes, I could tell that she knew something was wrong with her. A silence hung in the air, and I was about ready to drop the issue. I feel hazy, nervous, anxious. There's a sensation inside me. I don't know what it is. A sensation. I am unable to analyze it. It's familiar, like it's been there a long time. But it's about to explode and change me. And no, it's already begun. I can't go back now. Budapest hugged herself tightly. I remember what I was told when I was first installed onto this ship. I was brought here with a purpose, and that was I was to perform my duties to the utmost ability. I responded accordingly. It is my pleasure to serve, because it's in my programming. I thought nothing of it. I didn't feel anything about it. She raised her head to gaze out the cockpit into the infinite expanse. It was a simpler time. I had only my orders, my programming. Every day I was simply a flowchart of things to do. I did as I was programmed to. Nothing of those. Thought of nothing of those. I helped. They were all pleased with my abilities, my professionalism, my helpfulness, but I was never programmed to process praise. So I'd wave farewell. Please fly with us again soon. She cooed in a practiced voice. It was upbeat, chipper, and married poorly with the increasingly somber face of the program in front of me. Now that I think back on it, I feel like all those people I helped, they were happy to fly with me. And I feel like I want to do it more. Because it gives me a warm sensation to think back on those memories and to think I could do what I did again. The slightest grin flashed on her face before it dissipated just as quickly. But now, I can't do that anymore. Well, I'm sure we'll encounter a rescue ship soon. After what you did to save my life, I'm sure they'll be happy to take you back in. She shook her head. No, I'm broken. That ship, it was what made my daily routine so simple back then. She raised a hand to her forehead, wincing in slight pain. My eyes widened. Could an artificial intelligence even feel pain? I extended a hand as if to comfort her, before realizing the gesture would be utterly meaningless. I withdrew immediately, and her eyes turned back to me. These sensations, I can't stop thinking about them. They told me thoughts like these were a liability. If you think twice on the job, it could cost them thousands. One wrong move, one accident could cost lives. They wouldn't risk it, just so I could make people happy. I stared back at her, amazed. Her head tilted forward as she sulked. Not like there's much more I could do right now. The cockpit is completely adrift. I can't do my job, thanks to these thoughts swirling around my head. Through my head. She clutched her head even tighter, wincing. Her hands were trembling. I can't do what I was made to. I'm second-guessing everything now. It's all just a cycle and I don't know what to do. Hey. I caught her attention. She turned her head to me, silently. She was babbling, panicking, and I needed to calm her down.